And we're going to start it off with the panel and Chisa to talk about the play. I want to introduce everyone. To my left is the moderator, Dr. Ellen Anthony Moore. She's an assistant professor of theater arts at Marymount Manhattan College, where she teaches courses on dramaturgy, Shakespeare, and theater history. She's worked as a dramaturge at various theaters in New York City, including the Women's Project and Productions, the Pearl Theater, Stage on Screen, and Channel 13 WNET. She's also taught theater courses at Vassar College and Hunter College. She holds a BA in English from Sarah Lawrence College, an MFA in dramaturgy from Columbia University, and a PhD in theater history from the Graduate Center at CUNY. And then we have the playwright, Chisa Hutchinson. And then I'll go on with the rest of the panelists. In the center, we have Dr. Stuart Cook. He's the Ruth Dunietz Kushner and Michael J. Serwitz Chair in Multiple Sclerosis and Director of the MS Diagnostic Treatment Center at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. He received his medical degree from the University of Vermont, trained in neurology at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and was a faculty member at that institution, and at Columbia University and the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey prior to the merger with Rutgers. Professor Cook was founding chairman of the Department of Neurosciences at UMDNJ for 27 years, as well as acting dean and subsequently president of the university from 1998 to 2004. Then we have Dr. Rosemary McGee, who's a humanities scholar and medical humanities faculty member at Morristown Medical Center, teaching medical humanities to internal medicine residents and facilitating literature and medicine sessions with the with the medical staff. In addition, Rosemary is an adjunct professor at Drew University, a member of the Morristown Medical Center Bioethics Committee, and she teaches poetry and writing to community groups. She holds a doctorate in medical humanities from Drew University, and her first book, Spilling My Guts, was published in 2007. Currently, she's completing a master's in mental health counseling from Boston Graduate School of Psychoanalysis and is an advanced candidate in the certificate program at the Academy of Clinical and Applied Psychoanalysis. And then we have Sharon Zucker, who's the Dean of Guidance at New Jersey Seeds. She previously worked in higher education as an instructor and administrator at Rutgers University in the Office for Violence Prevention and Victim Assistance and the School of Social Work Center on Violence Against Women and Children. Sharon has conducted trainings for students of all ages on bullying, interpersonal violence, electronic communication, and bystander intervention. Ms. Zucker received her Master of Public Administration and certificate in Domestic Violence Studies from the University of Colorado at Denver, and her undergraduate degree in communication from Rutgers University. And now I'll hand it over to Ellen to begin the panel discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming tonight. What a pleasure it is to participate and to hear this wonderful play. I wanted to remind you that there's a dual purpose for our discussion tonight. First of all, it's to give our playwright some feedback about her work and also to discuss the themes and the ideas of the piece. So first, I would like to just say hello and ask you if there's anything you would like to share with us. You don't have to, but if you have anything to say or address, we wanted to give the floor to you first. Maybe after, okay? Or just interrupt me at any time if you want to. I would like to ask each of our panelists if they would just begin by responding to the play from the point of view of your area of expertise. Everybody has such a unique point of view, I'm sure, based on your experiences as a professional, and so we'll just start here.
I enjoyed the play. That was quite good. So my area of expertise is in medicine, neurology, My area of expertise is in neurology and particularly multiple sclerosis. And so I can probably address those reasonably well. So, I don't know what you want me to do. Talk to you a bit about MS?
Sure.
Yeah,
that would be great.
So multiple sclerosis is a disease that comes on usually between ages 15 and 40. It's a disease that has genetic contributions and also environmental contributions. Up until 1993, there were no treatments for this disease, and now we're up to about 13 drugs that are effective. So it's changed quite a bit, the prognosis for this disease. I will comment on the steroids that were given, which is certainly has always been the treatment of choice for acute relapses of MS. MS is a disease typically that has relapses and remissions, and over time tends to get worse if not treated appropriately. There are different forms of MS, but I think they're really all the same. Some patients have just progressive MS over time without any relapses, and some people have benign courses, and some people have more malignant courses. But the key here is now it's treatable. The patients can help themselves if they have this disease. Smoking and low vitamin D levels are predisposed to MS. And so if a patient has this disease, in addition to the medications, the most important thing is to make sure you have enough vitamin D, and also that you don't smoke. And this is not just true for MS, but probably true for other autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus erythematosus. Not only are they predisposed to getting MS, but also can have a worse course if they don't have enough vitamin D in their body or if they continue to smoke. And smoking, even for the children, is bad because if your parents are smokers, then you are more apt to get MS if you're in the child later in life than in families where there was no smoking. So if you need anything else to tell you not to smoke, that's another major event. So I would probably also comment on the treatment of this in terms of this particular patient in the play. So this lady started with MS, and it's, as I said, relapses and remissions. She was having disease primarily in her arms with weakness and tremors. More typically, it tends to involve one side of the body initially, or optic neuritis where you lose vision in the eye, vertigo where the room spins around, and particularly getting findings in the legs early on. But almost anything can happen with this disease. Now, treatment is available, and generally we go from a safe treatment, which has moderate effect, and if the patient continues to worsen, then we go up to a more aggressive kind of therapy, because the goal is to prevent people from deteriorating or dying. And I think we now are able to do that with some of these new drugs there are 3 new drugs coming out this year, in my opinion. And so it's the problem with the treatment is patients making sure that they go to doctors that know what they're doing to try to prevent this getting worse. And you'd be surprised how patients don't always do that. Sometimes they don't come to the doctors on time, they don't do the blood work that's essential to do, and so it's kind of frustrating. The other thing that can happen is patients can have difficulty getting the right drugs. The drugs are expensive, they're not cheap. They run between, say, $40,000 or $50,000 a year up to over $100,000 a year. And so that means, for the most part, you have to have insurance. And now the companies are reasonably good. We can almost always get a patient if they can't afford it. The companies do help a lot, and sometimes even get gratis treatment for some of these drugs. There's a problem, I think it was mentioned in the play, that it's very difficult the getting insurance companies to follow through, and the secretaries and the nurses and the doctors have to spend a lot of time trying to make sure that the patients get these medications. It'd be nice if we had a one-payer system and we didn't have to have all this kind of warring with the insurance companies, but it's a reality of what's going on. Now, here in Newark, we do have, if patients are really indigent and they have charity care at University Hospital, at least where I am associated, there are programs to try to help people even if they can't really afford anything. But it's not so easy either. So those are the issues, really, that I would address tonight in terms of MS. And if there are any questions anybody else had, I'll be happy to try to address them.
We will be taking questions and comments from the audience in a few moments. So why don't we go on to our next panelist and invite you just to respond to the play from the point of view of your area of research.
This is on? Okay.
Yes.
So a delightful play. Thank you, Chisa. It was just wonderful. And the actors were terrific. Just loved it. So I teach a graduate class called Poverty, Stress, and Health. And, it focuses on the social determinants of health, which include things like stress, issues in early life, social exclusion, work issues, unemployment, social support and lack of social support, food, lack of food, and education. So, there's been maybe 2 decades of research regarding all of these things and how these social issues affect our health and affect, someone's life, not just at that moment, but over the lifespan. So, the thesis is, and it's been proven over and over again, that, people who are less well off have substantially shorter life expectancies. They have more illnesses. They have less social mobility, less ability to move from place to place. And they have limited access to health care in most cases. So what that is, it adds up to much less opportunity overall to have a good, fulfilling life. So, what I saw in Chisa's play, Surely Goodness and Mercy, it was so heartfelt, and it touched on all of those issues. Tino, his mother died when he was 10. So, that kind of issue, when you have a death of a parent at a young age, it's, stressful and so damaging, for the course of your life. He also lived with being bullied and excluded at school, and he lives with an abusive aunt who clearly wasn't just verbally abusive, but she was physically abusive as well. All of those things for Tino. He's only 12 years old. He's just a boy, a very smart boy, but very highly stressful issues. Bernadette, different issues for her. Her work was difficult. She's standing all day. She has no health insurance. So when you think about it, she works I'm assuming at a public school, and yet has no health insurance. Like, how can that be? But she doesn't. She's isolated. She doesn't have a family, so she has little social support, and now she has a very serious illness. So, all of these things for both of these characters, they add up to to some serious shortfalls and what could be a horrible outcome overall. But they found each other. And that's the beauty in this play. The play focuses on this, the heart and the humanity of these two characters, and also Deja, who is a terrific support. And, their caring and their generosity to each other is, it's just, when you think about it, they really don't have anything to give each other except their spirit and their humanity, and ultimately their love. And that's what I think this play really brings out is they don't have a lot of money. They did the GoFund It website, which was terrific, but all they can do is give of themselves. And to me, what else is there? So hats off. I really love the play and thought it was terrific. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And finally.
Sure.
Yes.
So I'm with New Jersey Seeds, and I know that it's been mentioned a couple times over the course of the evening in the introduction and within the play, which was so neat to hear. And so just a little bit about us, and I know our materials are out there, but we're a nonprofit. We are based here in Newark. We're actually right down the street, and we're an access organization, I think, at the heart of what we do. But we are trying to further education for high-achieving kids from low-income families. That's our mission. And we do that by offering free, if the students get into the program, it's a tough application process. But again, our students are very high-achieving, and they go through our program. Typically, it's a 14-month prep program where they do go to school in the summer and on Saturdays, just like Ms. Bernadette said in the play. And then we work with them we have a team that works with them on placement into independent schools or private schools, where they typically get, if not a full ride to the private schools, very generous financial aid packages. And so, and the kids are supported throughout their time while they're in the independent school. We have a Young Scholars program, which is for 5th and 6th graders. We have our Scholars program, which is for 8th graders, and they stay in their 8th grade school. They stay in their public school while going to school with us on Saturdays and in the summers at a boarding school. And then we help them with placement for high school. And we also have a college, a program to prep public school, high school students for entry and support in private colleges and universities. And again, always focusing on the financial aid piece and really trying to make sure that they get matched with a school that not only is a good fit financially, but also a good fit for the student. And so I can, certainly talk much more about that, or I can answer questions about it as well. But I work with our guidance team, and what we do is try to provide that support for our students and their families once they're in their independent school. And so while I was watching the play, I just, sort of everything about Tino is what we kind of term a typical Seeds kid, which is there is no typical Seeds kid, but, everything about him sort of screamed this drive, this energy. He gets sort of bullied because he's the smart kid, doesn't really feel like he fits in. He talks about that at the beginning. And we hear that from a lot of our kids at Seeds, that they really don't feel like they fit in because they want to be in school. They want to be learning. They have that drive. They have that passion academically. And also the humility of Tino's character also really struck me, because a lot of times we sort of laugh because our kids, we'll go and talk to them about what they do, and they'll say, oh, yeah, everything's good, we're cool, in a boarding school, they'll be in these, elite private schools, and And they'll say, oh, yeah, I'm involved in a couple things here. And then when you go and talk to their advisor, you find out that they started a GoFundMe campaign for a philanthropy. And they're the captain of this team, and they're the head of the student council, and they're running for this, and they're doing all these incredible things. But they're just very humble about what they do and how strong they are. And so that really touched me about his personality. And the other thing that, and then I'll finish, but the other thing that really stood out to me was because of the relationship with Miss Bernadette, one of the things that we always try to make sure our kids have when they're at a school, and one of my roles as a guidance person for them is to make sure that they have an adult that they would trust, because a lot of them are going to boarding schools far away from Newark and far away from here, and it's a whole new world and a new environment. And so, sometimes I'll ask them, is there someone here that you would identify, an adult that you trust, that if something great happened or if something terrible happened, you would go and you would talk to them about it? And they often look at me like I'm crazy, like, yeah, sure, fine, I'll talk to my teacher or something. But I probe them a little bit because without Miss Bernadette and somebody to go talk to, that adult figure for him, he had someone like that. He had that adult, and I know they sort of laughed about it in the play, but, I think that's really important, and it was for him, and it is for a lot of our students as well. So, I thank you for just portraying all of that and more in the play, but it was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to open it up for comments from the audience. In fact, I'm going to stand to do this so that I can see you a little bit better, if that's okay. The lights are on me a little, so I'm going to step forward. If anybody has questions for any of our panelists or comments, something you would like to share about your experience of listening to the play, yes, right here.
Oh, I have a mic.
Okay.
Ellen?
I loved the play. It was very moving, and I got a very interesting point from it, and wonderful human beings, relationships, whatever. But it was not until the third panelist who made the comment, the lady here, that is a far stronger point for me that I didn't get from the play, and I think the play probably could benefit from it, and that is that there you have an employee of the school who did not have the insurance. And I'm wondering if you could weave it in somehow. So you basically give both messages, the message you already have about the relationship between these people, but also the social injustice.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to respond to that, or? Oh, good. Thank you.
Good evening. Ms. Hutchinson, what inspired the play? Share that with us. What inspired you to write the play? Have you been touched some way in your life by that condition?
Oh, yeah. The play is really just sort of a hodgepodge of personal experiences. I actually was in the first graduating class of Seeds, of New Jersey Seeds, so I know all about that that program. Well, just a couple years ago. But I think mostly I just wanted to... there are a lot of stories out right now, and there have been for a long time about, there's this like white savior thing that's been going, that's very popular, which I actually experienced in my life. Once I graduated Seeds, I got a scholarship to what I thought was a boarding school. Turns out it wasn't. So I moved in with a host family, and they're a white family, wealthy in Short Hills, and so good to me. And I still keep in touch with them, and I love them. They treat me like fam. But I've always had this sort of nagging guilt, almost, or like this nagging feeling of like, well, man, but like why can't we help ourselves? Or like I think about my ma, who I left her, to move in with this family because it was like, well, I can succeed better, easier here. So all that you were trying to do for me, that wasn't really enough, and what a slap in the face that must have been for her. even though she took me in, she wasn't my biological mother. She took me in when I was 4, and I was horribly abused by my biological mother. And she took me in and took me to church and prayed over me and fussed over me and fed me and clothed me, and for me to leave her, it just completely invalidated her contribution, I guess. I felt like I was invalidating it, and I wanted this play to sort of, pay homage and to acknowledge, the heart with which she gave. She didn't have much. She had love, and room in her heart for me, and that was, I think, the chief inspiration for the play is just wanting to point out where the humanity is and where the love is within our community, and not having it be about, escaping the community and, having someone somewhere up on high reach down and pull us out. It's not about that.
Okay.
Hi. I just want to thank you for the play, but thank you more for that testimony, because that is what I took out of this, that we as a community, when I was a kid, this is what you did. We didn't have departments and social agencies. If you saw need, the family stepped up and brought you in. And the irony is that there were people that I thought were my family, that I thought were blood, but they weren't. Mm-hmm. They were people who had come up from the South, and we could do for them, and Mama did for them, and this one did for them. That's what we were. So I'm glad to hear you say we got to get back to that. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think we have a comment over here. Thank you. There's time for both.
Cool. So I just want to thank you, one, for writing this play, for sharing your story so humbly and gracefully. I really appreciate that. And everything about the play and your remarks have resonated with me. One of the things I like the most about the play is that it sort of has an intergenerational appeal, right? You appeal to the adults, you appeal to the young people. Just a couple minutes ago, I saw a group of young people, I think, leave. I'm wondering and I saw them wave at you, so I think that y'all had some sort of relationship. So my question is, this is such an important piece, and it really does appeal to even the youngsters that I'm here with, 12, 13. They're like, "Ooh, I really like this," and I'm 21, and I'm like, "Yeah, I like this too." And so my question is, when you bring this into production, what are and I'm sure you already have plans for this, but do you plan on working with organizations or schools to get this seen by young people? Because I think this is really important for young people to see as much as for anyone else. And so if you have any plans on that, I would love to hear them.
I would love that. And if you know any, let me know. But yeah, I would like, there is some language, so that might make it a little difficult. And I'm really not one for sanitizing language, because look, these kids, yeah, they've heard it before. They say it, they say they're worse than I am. But I think, that would make it a little problematic for certain places. But yeah, I think there are organizations that would be open, and some schools maybe who would be open to this. And I hope I have some advocates in the room who are willing to go out and preach the gospel. But yeah, thank you.
Funny you would say that about preaching the gospel. Mm-hmm. I'm an apostle. Some don't understand that. Reverend Anna Rebecca Shell. I know there is a lot of profanity, but I didn't mean to bring my granddaughter to it. But she understands. She kept giving me looks in the beginning. I said, I didn't know this was happening, but we're going to go through this. And, it's a reality. I mean, I've been away from my biological mother since I was 10 and a half. And I've preached all over the East Coast just 1 year alone, ministering to youth groups and causing families that's wayward and divided by certain type testimonies, setting them free. And a divine power from a hand above intervene with the words that God would give me to cause healing and things to take place with that. I think that things done on levels like this is necessary, and to have interaction that will bring answers and solutions with things like this. I like the idea that there were so many different parts to this. I want to ask this question to you. Maybe it was said, but I need to say it this way. Tell me what your point was. I can say one of the things that, as far as the young people, that I appreciated is that it's showing how, and there are so many young people who are not trying to kill up people or not kill themselves, but have withdrawn and tried to find a safe hiding place so that they can continue to go on. That was a major point in that. So it seemed in the play that there were just different parts of different lives, and how some people could run across each other, but they still were all separate in what was going on with their lives. I'm looking for the part 2 to show the coming together, and it's not just an imaginative thing, but in a sense, it's a good imaginative thing because it can happen. To see the good end of the results of those coming together that way. But what was your point?
I guess the preacher sums it up with "be a blessing." That it's not just about like, okay, well, I feel like there's this like culture of victimhood or something that's happening that I find a little disturbing, of like, well, the world owes me something, and what am I getting, and who's going to help me, and me. But, regardless of where you are, you're always in a position to help someone else. And I feel like that it's that, what is it, the prisoner's dilemma? You know what I'm talking about?
Institutional mind?
Help yourself or help everyone. I can't even describe that whole situation, but there's anyway.
Not each one help one?
Yeah. Basically. I just, if I can encourage people to realize or to recognize their own agency in the world, or to acknowledge their own power, if one person leaves this room feeling empowered to help other people, or to be a force for change, for positive change.
Like there is a better way. You don't have to stay like that. Would that be your point?
Yeah. And that is not all about you,
Yeah. Because I'm going to do a writing about this. And that's one of the other many things that I do. I'm going to write something about this because one of the things that we do, we're called New Wine Multicultural Center, and you can't pour new wine in old wine skins. So you have to do a whole transformation. But you got to start somewhere. We're also the repair of the breach and the build of old waste places, build of restorative paths to dwell in. You want to hang out in there and live. Mm-hmm. So each thing and how they did that, and your point, and coming across that each one helped one, but everything in that showed you so many different parts of life and life that's needed. Like with the woman, she was so stubborn that she didn't even realize that she could have did some of that herself, but the way the divine hand had set it up, stirred up what was in this young man for him to see, regardless of the words that she used, the tone she used in her words, that she still cared. But he cared enough to care for her, though he was being mistreated. Mm-hmm. There's a whole different segment of pride and hate, and even to the principal, when he decided this well-behaved young man was in a situation, but he was even unfairly dealt with. Mm-hmm. He dealt with it wrong by trying to get his point across, but that should have been sat down with a social group in the school, and they have that. They have a social group. They have a counselor in the school. They have a what do you call a social, what's the woman, man?
Social worker, guidance counselor?
Social worker.
Yeah,
they have
counselor,
social workers in the school. They could have did that, especially for a child who was so bright. Now, I had to fight through the school system for my children coming up and actually go before educational law boards to get things done in the particular town. So I'm going to write something. I'm going to do a story on your play here today because
Thank you
it's
so
necessary.
much. I'm sorry I've got another comment out here, but we have lots of time. Yes. Yeah, just pass it back to Rose.
You know what? I'm sorry. I was waiting. So
Okay, absolutely.
Can you just tell me how long did it take for you to write the play? And I'm also particularly interested in how you chose the actors. They were really good. Really good.
It took a few months of like uninterrupted. I started it and then I had to put it away because I had like 8,000 other projects that I had to work on, and I felt I felt the deadline breathing down my neck. So I shelved it for a minute. But then when I picked it up, it took I don't know how long did I work on this? Like 6 weeks, about 6 weeks. And the actors, some of them I know I've worked with before. The kids, yes, the kids. The kids are from Link Community School, where I worked as an English teacher for a minute. And I just contacted an old friend at the school and said, hey, I have need of 2 kids who can present well on stage. And they did, yes.
Okay.
So, young lady, your work was absolutely divine. Chisa, it's always wonderful to see how you weave stories together. And I thought it showed a lot of promise and hope, and that it was authentic. The language fit. The lunch lady cursed with love. She cursed with love. Get your snotty nose out of here, you badasses. You know, like, but it was love. It was an affection for them and a void that she had in her life, but it still was filled through that, you know. And they knew that she loved them. You know when people care about you genuinely. And the young man knew that his aunt didn't have the ability to really love him the way that he needed to be loved, and that's why he left. And I think there's redemption in all of that because he raised the money for her. She took him in, and in the end, she had the check. So it said it all. And I think it speaks to the nature of our people, of who we are in spite of all that may happen, you know, and that does happen. And it speaks to humanity, because I think that is the core at what humans are, you know. But I know especially from the black experience and from the experience of Newark, where I come from, you know, what you may see on TV and what you read has nothing to do with what the heart is. I think the children show the heart of who we are, who we have been, and what we will continue to be, because it's just kind of in the DNA. You know what I'm saying? You can't keep a people down for very long. And that showed that with the lunch lady and with the young man. So you showed our legacy and you show the hope. And look, charge on. Charge on.
We have time for 2 more comments.
Hi, I'm Dana. I'm actually a former special education teacher here in Newark. I still work in education now in a different capacity. And I'm a former social worker for kids in foster care. So as I watched this, it spoke to many different experiences that I had personally. But what I wanted to say, and I'll be very brief, is that what I loved about the play most is that in a society that's saturated with celebrity, the superheroes were the cafeteria lady and a little boy. The little girl to some extent. This is my comment. This is my daughter, who also went to boarding school, who had some through White Foundation. No disrespect to seeds. And so for different reasons, of course, but similar experiences. But what I wanted to say is that I like that the superhero. Well, let me go back. The reason why I believe that more children and more students should see this, because the superheroes were not celebrities. It was your everyday people. And just speaking very personally, I think in our society we have devalued the cafeteria workers and the bus drivers that let you get on for less than what money you have. And, you know, the lady down the street who sees that you're hungry and says, you know what, come here, baby, let me give you something. Who knows what's going on but doesn't really say something but just helps you anyway. And we've devalued those people. And I like that this play gave value back to those people, because these are the women who sold chicken dinners in churches to send kids to colleges, right? And so I appreciate that you didn't forget that, and that you brought that through in a way that those of us who know, we knew. And I thank you for that.
Okay, I think we have.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for such a lovely performance. My husband and I are sitting here talking, we really enjoyed the fact that you gave us a lot of different things. And my question to you is, do you plan on developing each of those things? You've got violence going on, you've got bullying going on, you've got MS, you've got spirituality. I'd love to see how that plays out on stage in the long run. So my question to you, and my encouragement to you, is that you develop a little bit more of each of those aspects that you presented to us, because it's really deep and it has the potential to be a really powerful play, because you can include the younger and you can go way up to a grandmother who can relate to what you're saying, all within the scope of this play. So my encouragement to you, when you continue processing, I don't know how many more acts you plan on doing, is to develop that and really definitely get your point across through the school that approves of the language through educational purposes to bring it forth. And I'd like to see it actually here in impact to include a lot more of the community, so that you can bring kids into theater that don't get the opportunity to go to theater, don't know how to act when they go to a theater. I think this has the potential to do a lot more than just have people come and sit and watch you. I think that by including the youngsters in this play, you can now bring this next generation in and show the newer young people how they come to theater. And you can get something from it without there being a lot of noise, without there being a lot of movement. And I think that's really important in our community here. My kids attended the arts program here during the summer starting. It's a phenomenal program, and so I want to see more. And I think bringing it to NJPAC and allowing affordability for the community, very important, because you're dealing with people who will look at ticket prices and say, hey, the choice between a theater and food or clothes or paying a bill. So I think with affordability and a broader cross-section of the community, you have the potential to do greatness with this play. So thank you everyone here for bringing it and bringing it to the community.
Thank you. We have time for one brief concluding.
Okay.
Brief, thank you.
Well, my question will be brief. I hope the answer will be also. First of all, I really enjoyed not only the play, but the kinds of questions that came from the audience. But one thing was not touched on that I want to ask you about. That's the relationship between Tino and Deja. And you began with her really abusing her arm. And that, where were you going with that? Because no one has asked you about that. So that was my question.
There are students, who will hurt, or young people who will hurt themselves when they're not getting the attention that they need. I have this whole backstory in my head about, her parents being all into their own drama because the dad keeps cheating and yada yada, and they're just not paying attention to her, or they're working, and for whatever reason it is, she's just not getting the attention that she needs. So that when Tino starts to pay attention, she starts to heal and can yeah, that's it.
I want to say thank you so very much for coming tonight. Congratulations on your beautiful, extraordinary, thoughtful, creative, imaginative work. We so enjoyed this evening. I appreciate your coming, and thank you. Good night.
Good luck.
Because I know what I want to say. Even though he was so young, he was smart and strong.
It's like way past my bedtime.
And he didn't shy away from only those two kids, the nice lady, that very nice man, both of them doesn't have that tone, you understand? And he didn't let that affect him. And that's what keeps him from getting that care, and he was hot, and then he got hurt, and he had the girl, Asia, who kind of similar with her name. But he didn't let that affect him getting into that building a relationship. But there were so many other